All right, let's go ahead and get started with our webinar, which is titled Leverage the Power of AI, Your Path to a Smarter Job Search. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. First, we'll discuss some of the features of a few different AI tools that can be helpful in your job search and go over some of the instances when each tool would be most useful. Next, we'll go over some best practices and important things to keep in mind when working with AI tools so that you can leverage them appropriately, safely, and effectively. Then we'll actually go through quite a few different job search topics or aspects of the job search process, and I'll show you some of the ways that you can apply AI tools to support your efforts related to each of those areas. And I'll make sure that I share a lot of different, prompts that you could use or adapt to your needs to help you with those various areas of the job search. And this is definitely where we'll be spending the bulk of our time today. We do have a few other webinars that go over more of the basics of using AI and take a deeper dive into some specific tools. So I made sure to include links to those recordings in the resources section of today's webinar in case that's an area of interest for you. And then lastly, we will finish out our webinar with our live audience Q&A so that you have the chance to ask your questions directly with one of our career experts. Okay, so let's dive into our overview of a few general purpose AI tools that you can effectively apply in your job search. So you'll see the four main tools that we'll be going over listed out here on this slide, and they include ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time on the tools themselves because there are a lot of different tools available, and the ones that you choose really just comes down to, your personal preference. But I did think it was worth listing out some options to potentially consider, especially if you're new to AI and maybe aren't familiar with your choices just yet. But I like to use a mixture of tools sort of in tandem, meaning that, for any task where AI might be useful, I'm likely using at least two different tools, kind of asking them similar questions or prompts, and then kind of comparing and contrasting or mixing and matching the results. But that being said, each of these tools here on this slide, has some different features and some different best use cases, which is what I outlined under each tool on this slide. So for instance, if I wanted to analyze a body of text, like maybe a job description, I would probably use some mixture of ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. ChatGPT and Claude tend to be the best with these types of analytical tasks, but Gemini is extremely versatile, and it's pretty good with sort of the widest range or variety of tasks out of all of these tools. And if I wanted to, research information about a specific company or maybe salary information for a certain type of role, then I would likely lean towards Gemini or Perplexity. Both of these tools have strong search functions, and the free versions have real-time, up-to-date access to the internet, which is not something you'll find in every free AI tool out there. Perplexity is the most unique of these four, as its primary function is as a search tool. So I tend to lean on it the most when I have questions that I need answered. And if I needed help, maybe generating ideas or breaking through my writer's block, I'd be more inclined to use ChatGPT and Claude, though I might give Gemini a try for that one as well. ChatGPT and Claude tend to be the best with the more sort of creative tasks like writing or brainstorming. And a lot of people feel like Claude is able to give more of a human or kind of empathetic response to your questions or prompts. But again, Gemini's versatility makes it a decent option for this type of task as well. But I will sort of reiterate my main point here. There are a lot of different tools out there, and new tools, new variations of existing tools are being created all the time. So it's just a good idea to kind of test out a few, pick the ones that you like most. And just be aware that, not all tools are free to use, particularly ones that specialize in certain tasks. But many have both a free and a premium or paid version available, like the ones that are on this list, or listed on this slide, I should say. I've included a screenshot of ChatGPT and Claude on this slide because I wanted to show you how, the user interface and the ways in which each of these tools kind of interacts with you and vice versa are all pretty similar, which is good news in my mind because that means there's not a huge learning curve when you're trying to test out different tools. Now, it can get a bit more complicated when you start looking at things like, browser extensions for these tools, add-ons, plugins, various GPTs that are being created and things like that. But if your aim is like mine, which is just to keep things kind of simple and efficient, you really shouldn't have much problem testing out and picking different tools. I also included screenshots of Perplexity and Gemini on this slide, again, just so you can kind of see what they look like. And a nice thing with both of these tools is that they also allow you to access the sources on which they have based their responses, meaning, they provide you links to various articles that they use to aggregate their response to your questions. The paid framework of ChatGPT does this as well, and so do some other tools that are out there. But it's a nice feature that, you might value in an AI tool, especially an AI search tool. So it's something to consider when you're testing out different tools that are available. Okay, now let's dive into some best practices when using AI tools, because there are definitely some important things to keep in mind if you want to use them safely, appropriately, and productively. So first and foremost, I want to get sort of a disclaimer out there. And, if you've watched any of our other webinars on AI, you've probably heard me say this before, but you should aim to use AI tools to help you enhance your own work and increase your own productivity, not to do all the work for you. You can certainly ask for like tailored samples to help you generate your own ideas and improve your own work, but you shouldn't just copy and paste the exact text that AI provides you and then try to pass it off as your own. People who use AI with any sort of regularity, they're going to be able to see through that pretty quickly. The writing that AI provides you, it's going to lack your personal style and tone, and the information could be inaccurate without you taking the time to sort of verify it. And there also could be, some moral and ethical issues involved as well. So, just one more time, I advise you to use AI to help with your job search efforts, not to replace you or do everything for you. And one other thing that's worth noting is that you should make sure that you're protecting yourself by not sharing any overly personal or sensitive information with AI tools. If, for example, I wanted an AI tool to help review my resume, I would take out my name, my contact information, and probably even the names of the companies that I worked for before sharing the text of my resume with that AI tool. Some people might view this as being sort of overly cautious, but I'm a firm believer in being safe rather than sorry. But with those, disclaimers of sorts out of the way, let's move on to some other best practices, starting with tailoring your prompts. What this means is you want to make sure that you are tailoring the directions that you give or the questions that you ask these tools to your specific needs, because the quality of the output that these tools give you largely depends on the quality of the input you give them to work with. So you'll want to try, phrasing your prompts or your questions in some different ways. Make sure that you're giving important details or context that could influence what they create for you, and try some follow-up prompting if they maybe miss the mark or you just want to know more. And that last part there, that's one of the nicest things about these tools. They will remember all of your previous conversation within a specific chat, so you can easily ask follow-up questions or give new prompts without having to restate yourself every time you want to dive deeper or change the topic a little bit there. And like I touched on a bit earlier, it's also good practice to try out multiple tools. You might find that you prefer certain tools over others, or you might find, like I have, that combining the strengths of different tools can further enhance the quality of your work and improve your productivity. And when you use different tools in tandem for the same task, you don't have to only take the first suggestion that's given to you. You have the opportunity to kind of compare results and mix and match outputs so that you can develop a stronger final product. So don't be afraid to test out some different tools to see which ones you like best. This, of course, doesn't mean that you have to use a ton of tools all the time, but it could be helpful to, at the very least, try a handful of them just to narrow it down to the ones that best meet your needs and kind of match your comfortability level. And then, like I mentioned with my disclaimer at the start of this slide, you'll want to critically evaluate the output from these tools. These tools are not perfect. They can make mistakes sometimes. And if, for instance, you wanted to use one to write your entire resume or cover letter, they might go ahead and fabricate information to help make you sound better, which would be, of course, misleading if you used that information. So always make sure that you are, fact checking, editing, revising, and modifying the output from these tools, not just using the text that they provide you as your own. And then lastly here on this slide, it's a good idea to try out different prompt formats. There's a number of formats and patterns that are out there that you can use. So I recommend researching them a bit further on your own, but I have listed a few of the most helpful ones in that last bullet point. So to go over these just briefly, instructional prompts, they're the most basic. This is where you are simply, stating your desired outcome, like please rewrite my about section from my LinkedIn page to make it more engaging and impactful for recruiters in the blank industry. From there, you can then give further instructions maybe please make the tone more formal or more casual. Then we have question-based prompts. These are where you are simply asking specific questions to get detailed responses. For instance, you could ask, what are the key skills needed to be a successful project manager? And then just see what insights the tool gives you. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you can ask follow-up questions like, can you give me additional hard or technical skills that a project manager needs to have? COT there, that stands for chain of thought. This is where you break larger, more complex tasks into smaller, more manageable tasks to avoid confusion and improve the quality and accuracy of the results. So for example, chain of thought is a good prompt format to use when you're working on a resume because you can go over, each job or even each bullet point just one at a time. Comparative, that one says it kind of all in the name. It's where you kind of ask the tool to compare two or more things like documents or bodies of text. This would be good if you wanted to maybe compare your resume with a job description to see if there were any gaps in your experience. And then role playing. This is where you have it assume a specific persona and act out a request or a task. So for instance, you could share a job description with the AI tool and tell it that you want it to act as the hiring manager for that role, and then have it interview you for the position and provide you with feedback on your responses. This is actually, it's a pretty neat method for having AI kind of conduct a mock interview with you to help you prepare for an upcoming job interview. And I'll actually go ahead and show you a prompt that you can use for this a bit later in the presentation. So hopefully these best practices can be beneficial for you and help you make the most out of the AI tools that you choose to use. All right, so now we're going to go over some specific prompts that you can use related to 6 specific categories. And those categories are job search related research, analyzing job postings, resume and cover letter writing, networking, interview preparation, and interview follow-up. And as a reminder, you will be receiving a recording of this webinar within a few days. So please don't feel like you need to scramble to write down every single prompt on each slide because you will be able to go back and review them again. Okay, so starting with job search research. Any good job search starts with some solid research because you want to make sure that you have, some clarity regarding your target roles and target companies, and that all the steps you are making during your search are coming from a well-informed position. So thankfully, if you aren't quite sure where to start your research, AI tools can provide you with a great sort of jumping off point. For instance, if you're just starting out your career or are thinking of maybe making a career change, those first 2 prompts about exploring different career paths can be extremely helpful. That first one involves you providing some details about yourself and then having the AI tool suggest some options that you could potentially research further. That second one there is good if you're potentially interested in a certain field or industry, but maybe don't know a lot about it yet. And remember, with any of these prompts, you can then ask follow-up questions. So for example, if the AI tool suggested a certain type of role that could be a good fit for you, you could then ask it to provide you with more information about that type of role. And then moving on to that second section or that middle one there, it's also smart to do some research to help create a list of target companies for your job search. What I mean by this is, organizations that you might want to work for because of, one reason or another. And then you can kind of bookmark their hiring page. You could learn as much as you can about the organization and even try to network with people that work there. And the prompt under researching target companies under that header, that can help you begin to learn that type of information that I'm talking about. Though I would probably ask about those things just one or two at a time. I just wanted to include them all in one prompt here so you could kind of see all the different types of things that you can research. But you could also take a step back and start by simply stating that you are looking to apply for a certain type of role in a certain type of industry, and then ask the AI tool to suggest some potential companies for you to research further and target. And this is, a great strategy to use if you don't really know where to begin your target company list. And then also in terms of job search related research, it's important to stay up to date on different trends that might be affecting your field, industry, or target role, which is the goal of the prompts in that final section. So for instance, you might ask prompts like those last two bullets to understand what the hiring outlook looks like in your field, or to identify any recent changes to your industry. You could also ask questions about the way that emerging technologies like AI have impacted your field. You could ask if best practices for your role have changed, or really any other trends that would matter to someone trying to find work in your area of interest. And using an AI search tool like Gemini or Perplexity would probably be your best bet with at least the last two prompts on this slide, just to make sure that you are getting current information. It's also really important to carefully analyze job descriptions so that you understand and can extract the essential elements of each role to which you are applying or planning to apply. And AI can be really helpful with this task. The bullets in that first section there, they'll help make sure that you understand the role and know what type of information to convey about yourself to show that you have what the employer is looking for. Also, for that second bullet point in the first section, it would be a good idea to run that through twice, once asking for hard skills or technical skills, and then a second time asking for soft or transferable skills. If you wanted, you could also have an AI tool compare and contrast your resume with the role to which you are considering applying to identify how your background aligns with the position. Both of the bullets in that second or middle section there will help you better understand your fit for the role, identify any potential gaps that might exist, and allow you to strategize the ways to emphasize that you possess the necessary skills and abilities to be successful in this role. So by taking the time to understand what is important to your audience, meaning recruiters and hiring managers for individual roles, you'll better understand how to market yourself effectively to said audience. And we'll actually touch on that a little bit more in the next slide. And along those same lines, the bullet points in that last section will help you go into even deeper details about what to potentially include in your application materials in order to demonstrate relevance to your audience. By paying attention to keywords and phrases that are mentioned in the job description and then finding ways to incorporate them effectively into your application materials, you'll improve your ability to resonate with your audience and quickly catch their attention. And that final bullet point will help you sort of re-envision the situation, viewing the job description as the employer's needs or problems or challenges, which will help you understand how you can convey your skills, experience, and accomplishments as the solution to the issues that they are facing. So just kind of a helpful way of sort of reframing things. Okay, so once you've started analyzing job descriptions, you can then kind of combine those prompts and the information you gain from using them on the last slide with the prompts that we'll go over on this slide. And I want to mention that even though this slide is showing sample prompts that you could use to help improve your resume, you could pretty easily adapt many of them to also suit your cover letter, particularly those that are under the writing and editing and proofreading headings. I wanted to make sure to mention that since I didn't include a separate slide of prompts for cover letters specifically. But that first section is all about, determining and communicating your value proposition, essentially figuring out what are the unique skills, strengths, and experiences that you bring to a potential employer and the positive results that you could bring along to their organization were they to hire you. And in the first bullet point there, you can have an AI tool analyze your updated resume and help you determine the things that you might want to leverage in order to market yourself effectively. That second prompt is going to help you to determine, based on your resume and a target role you might be considering, whether there are any gaps between your value proposition and what a typical employer hiring for that type of position might be seeking. And I should note, both of those prompts can also be used in conjunction with a specific job description if you wanted even more detailed, tailored information, sort of combining them with the prompts on the previous slide about extracting that key information. And another prompt that you could use to help understand and improve your ability to convey your value proposition is, please review my resume. Does it portray me as a strong fit for a job title, role with company type organization? This could help you determine if you're communicating your value effectively and give you ideas on how to communicate it more clearly if necessary. Now, the prompts related to writing and editing, they can be great if you're maybe dealing with a bit of writer's block or struggling to convey your value to those different audiences. So for instance, that first bullet point is one that would be great if you were trying to make a career change or a career pivot, but didn't know exactly how to communicate your skills to someone outside of your current field or industry. That second one can help give you ideas on how to rephrase what you've written to make it more concise while still being impactful. And some other prompts that are related to writing and editing that you could try are, for example, write some sample bullet points for a job title position that would demonstrate my ability to leverage the following key skills. And then you could list out some of your key skills. Or you could say, what are some possible quantifiable accomplishments that I could incorporate into the following resume bullet points to make them stand out even more to employers. So lots of different options there in terms of helping writing and edit your resume. And then in terms of proofreading, it's always smart to, kind of check your writing for grammar, spelling, readability. And this is an area where AI can be really helpful. Now, like we mentioned before, AI isn't without its faults. So you'd still want to carefully review any edits or changes that it might suggest, just to be sure that they actually make sense and can work for your purpose before you actually implement those changes. But most AI tools still do a pretty good job of pointing out errors or highlighting portions of your writing that might sound a little bit confusing. And then even though, AI isn't perfect, using it as your resume and cover letter writing assistant can definitely help save you time while also helping you enhance the quality and clarity of your own writing. Just remember, it's not advisable to have AI tools do all the writing for you. So believe it or not, networking is also a good area where AI can be helpful, particularly networking online through different social media platforms. And one of the biggest areas in which AI can help you is optimizing your profile for visibility and to convey your value in a way that recruiters and hiring managers will find appealing. So one of the first things that you'll want to do to network effectively online is to pay attention to your headline or your branding statement. This is typically, the first thing that people see about you. So you want it to concisely convey your value in an impactful way. So that first bullet point there can help you make sure that your headline is tailored to your target audience to help catch their attention. Then you also want to make sure that your about section is speaking to your target audience. So using, industry or role specific keywords and phrases, highlighting your strongest skills, and showcasing a few of your most impressive accomplishments. Those will all help you further convey your value. And that third bullet point could be a good one for enhancing your online profiles as well as your resume, cover letter, website, portfolio, or other resources that you're maybe using to support your job search. And then that last one in the first section about optimizing your profile, that's a good one to use and regularly refer to so that you can remember to occasionally update your profile, maybe once a month or so, just so that you're maintaining a strong profile to support your networking efforts. And in terms of that second section there, one of the most important aspects of effective networking is finding the right people to, follow, engage, and connect with. So using a prompt like that one in that final bullet point can help you identify target connections and companies that you might want to focus on. Now, I included a lot within that sample prompt there, that last one on the slide. So, it's a good place. This one's a good place where you might want to kind of break things up and maybe use something like that chain of thought prompting technique just to make things simpler. And also, that's a prompt where an AI search tool like Gemini or Perplexity would probably be best suited. But you could also try that with other tools as well. Either way, though, if you're struggling with where to start in your online networking efforts, these prompts can help you determine your target audience, present yourself effectively to that audience, and maximize your overall visibility for recruiters and hiring managers that might be, sourcing candidates through social media platforms or looking you up once you've applied to one of their roles. Preparing for interviews is one of my favorite ways to use AI tools, most likely because interviews can be really challenging and often nerve-wracking. And a helpful way to prepare for interviews is considering potential interview questions that you might be asked. And that can include, general categories of common questions like, open-ended, behavioral, or situational, as well as role-specific questions. And that's a place where AI can be a really big help, like you'll see in those first two bullet points. This approach can really help you get into the right frame of mind for an upcoming interview. It can help you, think about how you might respond to questions about different job relevant topics and give you some ideas about sort of the stories and examples that you might want to share during an interview to strengthen your responses. And going a step further, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but you can even have AI conduct a mock interview with you if you use a prompt like that one listed in the second section there on this slide. I didn't include it directly in that prompt, but you could do this using a specific job description if you wanted to, just to get even more tailored questions to practice. And I really enjoy using this strategy because practicing interviews, even if it's with an AI tool, can help you improve your interviewing skills. And the best approach would be to try this for a while with an AI tool and then practice with another person, preferably one with some hiring experience, whether it's a friend, a family member, former coworker, mentor, or maybe even a career coach, so that you can get some experience practicing out loud and receive feedback directly from another human being. And as I've already mentioned a few times on this slide, it's good to have some stories and examples from your past experience to kind of strengthen your responses in an interview. And using the STAR framework can be a helpful way of organizing those stories. So let me elaborate on that a little bit further. The reason you want to have stories and examples prepared prior to an interview is that you can use them to kind of provide support or evidence to your claims that you have the necessary skills and experience to be a strong candidate for that role. For instance, if the role demands someone who can communicate effectively, build strong relationships, and solve problems, then you want to have some stories ready that showcase your ability to do those things effectively to achieve positive outcomes. This can kind of support your claim that you're actually skilled in those areas. The problem is that not all of us are naturally good storytellers. So that's where the STAR framework, which stands for situation, task, action, and result, can come in handy. So, situation, provide the background details or give the context in which the story takes place. Task, what needed to be accomplished in this situation. What was the task that needed to be accomplished? Action. What action did you take in order to accomplish that task? And then result. How did things go? Was it a positive result or a negative result? If it was negative, what did you learn, or how would you do things differently in the future? Even trying to use this framework can be a little confusing for people. So tapping into an AI tool and giving it your, resume, or even just some details of a story from your past that you want to refine into a solid star story can be really helpful as you prepare for interviews. And this kind of thorough preparation, can really help make sure that you are kind of putting your best foot forward in interviews. So the next time you have an interview coming up, consider tapping into some of these strategies to use AI tools to help you prepare. And then the last topic area that we're going to cover today relates to some of the things that you should do after you've had an interview or after you've received a job offer. So within 24 hours after completing a job interview, it's a good idea to send a thank you note to all the people with whom you interviewed. This can help demonstrate your professionalism, show that you genuinely appreciated their time, and also give you an opportunity to maybe clarify aspects of your interview responses if necessary. If then some time passes and you haven't heard back from the company that you interviewed with, it's also a good idea to send along a follow-up message to reiterate your interest and inquire into the status of the hiring process. So AI can help you draft examples of these types of messages, which is helpful if you aren't well practiced at communicating in this way, or are maybe nervous about or unsure of what to write. And also that second section, while salary negotiations typically occur after you've been offered a job, it never hurts to do some salary research at the early stages of your job search, just so that you're prepared when the time does come. And you also never know if you'll encounter a question about your preferred salary in the application or during the interview. So regardless of what point of the process this topic comes up, it can be a source of a lot of uncertainty and anxiety for job seekers. So it's helpful to use AI to make sure you're ready to discuss that topic. And I would probably use an AI search tool like Gemini or Perplexity to help me do research into fair market value for my skills and experience. But then really any AI tool could be used to help you craft some talking points when you actually get to negotiate your salary. Okay, so I know that was a lot of prompts to go through, but hopefully this has helped you better understand the ways that you can, job search more effectively by using AI to assist and enhance your efforts. And as we come to a close, let's go over a few reminders and action steps that you can take going forward. So the first one there, remember to try out different AI tools. That way you can try to find the ones that work best for you, and consider, maybe combining the strengths of multiple tools by using two or more for the same task. That second takeaway, tailor your prompts to your specific needs, making sure that you're being clear, trying out different ways of phrasing, and providing enough context so that you'll get helpful output. Then we have test out different prompt formats and patterns, since some ways of interacting with AI tools are more productive than others for different purposes. And also remember to use follow-up prompts to refine the output. And then lastly there, remember to critically evaluate the output you receive from these AI tools so that you can check for accuracy, inject your own, style and tone, rather than just kind of passing off something that is entirely generated by AI as your own work. Okay, so we are going to move into the Q&A portion of our webinar now. Just as a quick reminder, a copy of the recording as well as resources discussed within the presentation will be emailed to you within the next week. So that means, again, you can go back through and find the prompts that you're most interested in trying out for yourself. But do be sure to check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered there. For even more tips, tricks, and resources, I recommend going to the FlexJobs blog. You'll see the URL there on the screen. Now let's go ahead and open up to your questions. Please remember to type them into the Q&A area rather than the chat section, and feel free to give a thumbs up to anyone else's question that you would also like to have answered so that we know which are the most popular. All right, we're going to move into your questions now. Before we dive into those, could someone let me know in the chat section that you're able to hear me clearly? Okay, good. Thank you very much for confirming that for me. So, my name is Keith Spencer, and I'm one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I will be answering your questions for you. So, our first question here in the Q&A tab that has the most upvotes, this person is asking, can you use an AI application to help search all online job boards for roles of interest to help save time? So, these sort of general large language models that we're talking about here, some other folks mentioned some in the chat or in the Q&A, like Microsoft's Copilot, things like that. They tend to not be great at that, kind of scouring, job boards, for example, and providing you with like links that you could use. Now they can, suggest different sort of niche job boards. Like I've tried with, at least Gemini and ChatGPT, asking, if I wanted to search for remote roles, where should I look? And it always provides, FlexJobs and a couple other options, as some job search sites that I could use. But in terms of like entering in my preferences or my target roles, they tend to not be very good at that. There are some tools out there that claim to be able to search job boards for you, even apply for roles, things like that. But I have read some articles and some blog posts from people who have actually tried these tools, and they tend to get pretty mixed results, often not great results. So, the one, for example, the person was saying that, I won't mention the specific tool that they were using or tried to use, but it started to, just apply to really anything under the sun for them. It dug up somehow like an old resume that they had attached to their like Indeed profile or something like that, and started sending out that resume, which was like completely outdated. Eventually, it started applying for roles that like were not a good fit. Just really kind of some buggy kind of issues there. So maybe one day we'll have some specialized AI tools that can do that effectively. But in terms of saving time with that right now, I would recommend having a job search board open in one tab, AI tool open up in another tab. You searching by the keywords and criteria, using the filters that are going to match your needs and preferences most closely. And then as you find roles that pop up, copying and pasting them over into the AI tool just to have it summarize it for you. That can at least save you time. You don't have to read through, every single posting that you come across, at least on first glance. You could just get a summary to see like, okay, do the key skills and qualifications that the AI tool is picking out and summarizing for me, do they actually align with the type of, skills and abilities that I bring to the table, or should I move on and keep reading other postings? So, a little bit of a roundabout answer there, but hopefully that was helpful information for you. And thank you for asking that question. Okay, so our next one here, this person is asking, is there a need to pay for a premium subscription to these tools, like Gemini? As was mentioned in the presentation, most of these tools have a free version and a paid version. I personally have just been operating solely with the free version of all of these tools. I have not yet upgraded to a paid version of any of them, and I've been able to get along just fine. You could do some research into, the differences between the premium version and the free version on these different tools to see, is there something missing that you want it to be able to do that it's not doing with just the free version. ChatGPT fairly recently and still is, allowing users of the free version to use the paid framework for like a certain number of prompts each day. And it does seem to be like a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more intuitive. I think it's fair to say that the premium version is better than the free version. But also, once I hit that certain number of prompts and it puts me back on the free version or the free framework, it doesn't feel as though I'm all of a sudden missing out or anything. But that's just me and my personal preferences there. But like I said, it's worth maybe doing some research, reading some reviews and things like that to see, is there something that I'm really missing out on with these premium versions that I would like them to be able to do, that they are not doing with the free version. But like I said, like I've been able to get along just fine, only using the free versions. That's part of why maybe I like to use different tools in tandem, because the free version of this tool might be a little bit better at X than the free version of this tool, and this tool can do Y a little bit better. So maybe I guess that kind of like makes up for using the free version, I guess, for lack of a better term. But I don't think there's necessarily a need to upgrade just so that you have the premium version of these tools, if that makes sense. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Thank you for asking that question. And let's go ahead and move on to our next one. Okay, so the next one here, really good question. This person is saying, how do I optimize my LinkedIn profile if I'm changing careers and have multiple, kind of industries or positions to target? So yeah, that is a common concern for job seekers, right? Like we talk about, you have a tailored resume for each application that is targeted for that specific role, but you only have one LinkedIn profile. So it needs to be a bit more broad, a bit more general in nature. So here, what I would do in this situation, and pulling in AI to help me do this, so I would go to an AI tool and I would think about, like, okay, what are the 2 to 4 maybe industries or types of positions that I'm trying to target now, and I would start asking, like, where's the overlap, what are the commonalities that these target roles share, or that they that the skills that apply to all of these fields. And I might do it 2 at a time, sort of that chain of thought prompting pattern. Maybe not give it all of them all at once to avoid confusion. But I'd start to use those AI tools to help me find that overlap, because the overlap is where I would want to kind of start in terms of optimizing my profile. If I know that there are these 10 skills that are relevant and transferable to each one of the 4 types of target roles that I'm looking at, well, then you better believe I want those 10 skills emphasized in my LinkedIn profile. If there are other things that, maybe are specific to just one of those target roles or target industries, but is really, really important to that target role, well, then I probably want to include that as well. But if there are some other things that, aren't super important to any of the target roles, and maybe really only relates to 1 or 2 of them, well, then I might try to scope that or scale that information back a little bit. So basically, you want your LinkedIn, when you're targeting, different roles like this, you want your LinkedIn to be a bit more broad and speak to a bit broader of an audience, while still trying to be targeted, if that makes sense. So that's where I think AI can help you, understand, like, okay, how can I be targeted with these, 3 or 4 different types of roles? Where is that crossover, or that overlap? How can I emphasize the things that will be important or relevant to audiences in all of these different fields? So hopefully that is helpful for you. I know that, like I said, that is a common concern or frustration for job seekers. So really just try to highlight the things that are going to put you in the best light for each one of those target roles, thinking about those skills or those accomplishments that can be most transferable and have the most overlap there. So good question, and thank you for asking that. Okay, so next one here, is there one of these AI tools that is better than the other for tailoring resumes and cover letters that match specific job descriptions? So not necessarily. So if we're thinking about like writing in general, ChatGPT, that's a strength of ChatGPT. Claude, that's a strength of Claude. Analyzing, that's a strength of Gemini. That's a strength of ChatGPT. So I would probably use one or more, probably more, two at least, of those 3 to try to tailor resumes and cover letters, because I would want some ones that are solid at analyzing job descriptions for me first, and then I would want ones that are strong at writing or generating engaging and impactful text to help me come up with some samples or examples of the type of things that I would want to incorporate into my resume and cover letter based on those job descriptions. So not necessarily one that I can necessarily, or that I can say, yes, this is the one you want to use for that kind of tailoring. I would, like I mentioned in the presentation, try to use at least 2 kind of in tandem to help me with that task. So hopefully that is helpful for you, even though I didn't give you a direct answer for that question, but thank you for asking that. Okay, so the next one here, how do you enter a specific job description that you find on, LinkedIn or Glassdoor or another job search site into AI for analysis? So I find the easiest way is to literally just copy the text. So, highlight the text on that job search site, right click and click copy, and then just go and paste it into the AI tool. Like that tends to be the easiest. Some of these AI tools, well, all of these AI tools have their different kind of character limits and whatnot. But I have never hit the character limit on any of these AI tools. So unless it's like a giant job description and you have like a 4 or 5 page resume, like you're not very regularly going to run into the character limit. So I would literally just highlight it, copy, paste directly into the AI tool. So hopefully that is helpful for you. And thank you for asking that question. Let's try to squeeze in one or two more here. Okay, so this person is talking about Microsoft's Copilot. They're saying that they think that it's based on ChatGPT and is free for now. Is this true? So I have not used any of the Microsoft AI tools that are out there. There's the Copilot, there's Bing Chat. I think there's a few others, but to my knowledge, I believe that yes, it is either based on OpenAI's ChatGPT framework or like closely integrated with it. Now, I am not 100% on that. I haven't done too much digging into that specifically, but a lot of these AI companies do kind of have partnerships and agreements working together. Using some of the same framework and source code and things like that. So I'm not positive, but I believe that what you are saying is accurate. And I think also that there is at least a free version of Copilot available out there as well. So take that for what it's worth. But I believe that you are correct. Okay, let's get another one in here. Okay, so this person's, I believe it's the same person that was asking about, getting the job description into an AI tool. So this person is saying, follow up to their earlier question, not experienced with it with this. That is perfectly okay. No judgment here. Would I have to retype my resume into an AI site, or is there some way to copy and paste? So yeah, if you were using like Microsoft Word, or Pages, I believe is still Apple's version. If you have a Mac, their word processor, or like Google Docs, whatever sort of word processing software you are using to type up your resume, you should be able to, drag and highlight and just highlight the whole text of your resume. I would leave out, like I mentioned in the presentation, your name, contact information, stuff like that. Make sure there's nothing personal or sensitive being shared. But you should be able to highlight, the text of your resume, the body of it, and then just go to these AI sites like ChatGPT or Gemini, right click in the chat bar, and then click paste. One of the things that I like to do, so if I was going to have it maybe, help me kind of reword a bullet point or something like that, I'll say, please reword the following bullet point to make it sound more impactful to, this type of employer. And then you can hold the shift button and press enter, twice to skip down a couple lines, and then you can paste in, the text that you want it to help with. So that's another thing that I don't believe I mentioned at all during the presentation. But it's just, a nice way to kind of, organize it a little bit more carefully and make sure that, it's not getting confused or like convoluted there. So hopefully that is helpful for you. But yes, you should be able to just highlight, copy, and then paste into, any one of these AI tools. And I should note that all of the AI tools that were mentioned, you can use all of them just within a web browser. If you just went and did like a Google search or a Bing search or whatever, and just typed in like ChatGPT, you should be able to find ChatGPT pretty easily, or Gemini, or Google's Gemini. Whatever you want to, whichever tool you want to use, you should be able to find those pretty easily just using a search tool of your choosing. And yeah, you can just use it right in a web browser. You don't have to download any, complicated applications or anything like that. So hopefully that is helpful for you. Let's try to squeeze in one or two more here. Um, okay, so I'm going to gloss over this one because I think we answered this already. But this person's asking, which are better for resumes, cover letters, etc. Is one better than another? Like I said earlier, I would try to use a mixture of some that are good at writing, like ChatGPT and Claude, and then others that are good at analysis, like Gemini, ChatGPT. So I would probably gravitate. Like you could honestly, if you wanted to, just get along fine with using, solely ChatGPT and Gemini if you wanted to. But again, test some different ones out and see which ones you like the best. Okay, so now we'll squeeze in one more question here. This person is saying, are there AI driven techniques or strategies to enhance networking and connecting with professionals in my desired field? So that slide, I believe this was asked before that slide popped up, but there are some good networking prompts in here. So make sure when we send out the recording that you could skip ahead to that slide and take a look, pause the video and take a look at those networking prompts. But yeah, like, trying to ask like Gemini or Perplexity, for example, like, I'm in this type of field. Who are some industry thought leaders that I should follow on LinkedIn? Like, that's a good starting point. And then as you start, following people on LinkedIn, you can see, who comments on their posts, who engages with them, and you could start following those people as well. Just trying to use sort of that kind of ripple effect, building out from there. Make sure you're following people, commenting on their posts, providing like supportive or encouraging comments, sharing your perspective, things like that. That's how you can start to sort of build up that network, and AI can help you with that. Like if you took someone's post, copied someone's post, went to an AI tool and said, can you give me a sample of a insightful comment that I could leave on this person's post? It could give you a good idea of something to work with. Now, that being said, I spend quite a bit of time on LinkedIn, and I spend quite a bit of time working with AI tools. It is pretty glaringly obvious when someone is using strictly AI generated comments or sending strictly AI generated messages. So make sure, like I tried to emphasize in the presentation, that you are using it just as sort of a sample or an example to kind of base your work on, but that you are crafting a message that is actually your own. Like usually, so if I were to use AI to help me, with something that I'm writing, I end up using like maybe 10%, 15% of the actual language that it gives me. Like I really don't recycle a lot of that language. I'm someone who learns really well when I have, samples and examples to kind of like look at and work from. And I'm a big believer that, it's so much easier to do a task if you're not starting with a completely blank slate. But honestly, it should still be your own work. Like, yes, you could borrow a word or two here and there, but really it should be your own work. And that's something that like I said in the presentation, if you've seen any of our other AI webinars, that's something that I really try to emphasize, because if you're just having AI replace you entirely, well, then what's the point of even showing up? You know what I mean? So hopefully that is helpful for you. I'll climb down off of my soapbox there and not emphasize that too much. But hopefully that is helpful for you. You can definitely use AI to get some solid samples and examples of messages or comments that can enhance your networking strategy. But you wouldn't want to use it strictly to do everything for you, if that makes sense. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. Really appreciate you all taking the time to join us today for this webinar. I sincerely hope that both the presentation and the Q&A have been beneficial. Highly encourage you to check out some of our future webinars. We have some good ones coming up. We're taking the day off tomorrow from webinars, but on Thursday, we do have at 2 p.m. Eastern, how to recover from a layoff. So if you are someone who got impacted by a workforce workforce reduction, definitely consider checking that one out. And then on Tuesday, which is June 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern, we have how to combat ageism in your next job interview. So definitely recommend checking out some of those future webinars if they sound of interest to you. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and I wish you all the best of luck with your job search. Take care.